In this video, I'm going to show you how to assemble and install the KallyRest onto a Kalamazoo 1SM belt sander. Let me start with the tools you're going to need. It's very simple. A 7/16 inch socket, an 1/8 inch, and a 5/32 inch Allen key. That's it. Let's go over all the parts real quick. So this is the clamp. This attaches to the mast of the belt sander and holds the whole thing in place. This is the adjuster block. The adjuster block is used to join the clamp to the platen. So like that. This gives you tons of adjustments in many dimensions, which you're going to find out in just a minute why you need all that. So the last two pieces are the attachment bar and the rest itself. This lets the rest be removable. It uses this screw right here to hold it in place. So you can pop it on and off. And on the rest itself, you've got the angle lock and then the angle adjustment. All right, let's move on to installing it on the Kalamazoo itself. Before we install the KallyRest, we need to understand exactly what we're trying to do here. The most important thing to do is to get the platen to line up exactly with the belt in all three dimensions and be square to it and be either just touching or just a bit off from touching. So we got to start with, where does the belt go? And here's what I mean. On the Kalamazoo, you can position the belt in a number of different places by twisting this head. So I'm going to turn it on real quick, and I want you to listen to the sound that it makes as I twist the head. See there where there's no vibration? It's nice and smooth. You probably can't tell, but this is also almost exactly in the center of the top wheel. So this is probably the place where it's going to have its most true vibration-free operation. And this is the place where we should position the platen properly. All right, let's get to the actual installation. To get started, we're going to install the clamp. The clamp needs to be positioned so that the pin is to the front and to the right. I'm going to remove these two bolts. So that's two pieces. And just clamp it on here. I'm just screwing it in a little tiny bit, front and rear. I'm trying to watch the gap here and keep them even. This becomes much more important when we actually do the final tightening near the end. For right now, I'm just going to snug this down just a little bit by hand. And that's plenty. It doesn't move. On to step two. Next, we're going to install the adjuster bar. So notice that we have two holes in the adjuster bar and quite a number of set screws. To get this installed properly, you've got two easy rules to follow. On the left-hand side, make sure that the hole is on the bottom front and that we have no screws on that side. I'm going to pre-install the platen into the front hole to make it easy on me so I don't have to try to position it behind the belt. Now we're just going to slide this onto the pin on the clamp. Boom. We got it sort of close there. So the screws that will hold this in place are on the back and the bottom, which you probably can't see. I'm going to snug it with the back one, just to kind of keep it from moving too much. This takes a minute. Be careful and don't use too much force here. Just get it kind of snugged up. We can do the bottom one also once we get around to that. Now I'm going to reposition the camera so you can see how I'm going to get the platen square with the belt in 3 dimensions. I think you can see now that the platen is obviously not positioned all the way correctly. What probably isn't obvious from this perspective is that the left to right adjustment of the platen is off. It's off by about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more right now. So I'm going to push the adjuster block in on the pin until, well, I guess I need to loosen it a little more here in the back. Loosen that. There we go. All right, so I'm kind of measuring this with my finger to feel on both sides of the belt if it's even with the platen. And at this point it is. I also want to make sure I get the tilt correct. You'll notice that it's touching at the top and it's not touching at the bottom. So I'm going to tilt that a little bit and then just kind of goose it a little bit until it touches the belt. That's moving this pin in and out. That'll help me make sure I get my tilt exactly right. All right, so that's pretty much exactly correct. Well, not exactly, but it's quite close. I'm going to snug this outside pin real quick. That just keeps this from moving in and out or from twisting. And I'm going to get the back one also. It should get the rest of it. My hand's going to be in the way, I apologize. Almost there. It just moved a little bit while I was adjusting it. Snug this a little bit more. All right, let's double check this thing. Yes, this still needs to be tightened a little bit. This is the platen adjustment. There's another one on the bottom. I should probably go ahead and snug up also. Go ahead and do that real quick, if I can. Yeah, I think that's just about got that. And there's one on the top here that is the other mating piece from the bottom, or the other mating set screw from the bottom. Let's get that snug. All right, we are pretty darn close here on getting this adjusted in 3 dimensions. I'm going to turn the camera off and get it all snugged down just a little bit more, and then we'll make 1 or 2 more, well, we'll install the last couple of pieces. One thing I should mention before we move on is if you can't get the platen correct to the belt in all 3 dimensions, in particular if it's off like this, then the mast clamp needs to be adjusted. You need to loosen these up and then just twist it. I got it close enough to square that it doesn't seem to be a problem at the moment. So let's move on to the holder block here. You'll notice that there's 2 sets of screws. There's screws here and screws here. So the block can go here or it can go here. The difference is that when you put it on the bottom set, you'll have the KallyRest right against the platen. So all of your grinding will take place against the platen. The inventor of the KallyRest doesn't recommend that, and I've taken his recommendation and put it in the top instead. So all the grinding happens just above the platen, where the belt is nice and taut. It doesn't deflect hardly at all. If you can see that from this perspective, but it's quite taut. So that's where we're going to put it. We're going to use the screws that came with it, these 2 5/32 screws. Just going to snug those down with the 5/32 Allen key. In fact, I'm going to make them just a little bit more than snug. Now that's installed, and we're essentially done, other than making sure that all of the set screws are nice and tight and that the angle is exactly correct. I like to give that a triple check when I'm totally done here, since I'm continuously moving the thing around. So I'm just going to put this into the channel, and then Mr. Screw here goes right into the center hole. That holds it in place, as well as letting you tighten it in any of these positions, front to rear. So I'm noticing that we're off. I'm going to reposition the camera so you can see, and I'll make a final set of adjustments. So here we are straight down over the KallyRest, and as you can see, it is correctly positioned in front of the belt. It was not a few minutes ago, and it turns out the problem is the clamp. I did not show you something very important about the clamp, and I did it wrong. So I'm going to reposition the camera and show you this important point about getting the clamp clamped correctly. Okay, so notice the gap here and the gap here are relatively even. When you tighten these two bolts down, it's really easy to get one gap to be really tiny and the other gap really large. And if you do that, it won't actually clamp onto the mast correctly. It'll be kind of touching on one side but not touching on the other, and it'll move around like it was doing on me. So when you initially position this, just barely screw in one side, screw in the other side, and watch the gaps, and go back and forth, keeping the gaps equal. If you do that, you'll get a nice tight clamp, and it'll work properly, unlike mine, until I fixed it. Here's the completed installation. You can see that the platen is nice and square to this in these dimensions. The rest itself is nice and square to the belt. And of course, everything's in place and looking good. All right, thanks for watching.